Traditional track guides tell you where to brake, where to steer, where to lift, and which gear you need to use to get your optimum lap time. And I'm not even talking about the car you're driving or how skilled the driver is explaining you this track guide. So whenever the fuel load changes or weather changes or you have worn tires, these track guides become pretty useless. So instead of memorizing every point, we are going to create a car that starts to whisper to you what it needs. How far can you put the throttle down? How much can you steer? On every different situation. I use track guides myself, and I think this new layer of understanding will make them even better. The way I'm gonna explain you this track guide is that the car will be in 3 different states and we'll apply the grip circle to it, how it's changing under different speeds. So imagine in this coming video that this line is going to be all about the acceleration and deceleration, and this one is going to be all about cornering left and right for the front and rear axle. When we drive a lap on Spa, your car can be in 3 different states. It can be on the low speed, like over here, and it can be on the mid speed, and it can be on the high speed. And every type of speed the car state is in comes with different features and parameters and things you can do with your input. Same as here, you got this massive top speed and you can actually steer the car through all rouge et blanchiment with elevation changes and all this physics going on. So let's understand with the grip circle what's happening to the car and why we can get away with this. In the first example, in the first corner, we are driving so slowly that we can only utilize mechanical grip, right? Mechanical grip, when you're driving really slowly, it's very easy to spin the rear tires and it's very easy to lock up the front tires. Something that you can do when you drive really slowly is use a lot of steering input. But that is only when you're coasting. If you have a lot of steering input and you immediately push down the brakes, you lock up the front tires, you go out of the grip circle. Same as for cornering, as soon as you corner the car and you hit a lot of throttle, the grip circle on the rears, the tires start to spin, and if you set a car into the cornering geometry, you'll spin it slowly out of a slow corner, right? When the pace starts to increase and you go faster, then all of that power is not gonna have that much influence anymore. Because we're driving quicker, we have higher speed, and there is something other cool starts happening, is we create aerodynamics in the car. Because we're increasing the speed, we get more airflow, and the aerodynamics starts to take over from the mechanical grip, right? So when we enter All Rouge and Radion, we get lots of aerodynamics, and that will make our grip circle bigger. We have aerodynamics helping us out. And because we are not accelerating that fast anymore, we can actually corner the car a lot. If we keep on throttle, we get a lot of stability here, and this is what you get when you driving high speed. So you can see that high speeds, we can have a lot of aerodynamics and we can change the car direction a lot. Now in this next corner section, we're gonna be more on the mid speed. So we lose aerodynamics, we utilize mechanical grip, we need to be careful with the throttle and the braking and the steering, and we're constantly searching the edge of the grip circle in this instance. But now the car sucks on the tarmac again, and now we push the brakes again and we lose aerodynamics. We steer the car, we need to be careful with throttle, braking input, steering input all simultaneously. And here we are, the no-name corner, and we're exiting the corner like this. So we're kind of hitting the brakes, we slow the car down, and we lose aerodynamics when we have only mechanical grip. As we brake, steer, we searching the edge of the grip circle. When we then approach the first corner after Camel Straight, we might go from this to this, and we have some aerodynamics left. Maybe there's a situation where we lose it a little bit, but then as soon as we hit the throttle, it starts to come back. Then when we finish that first section all the way down to the hairpin, it might increase again, and then it starts to slow down again. So this is a dynamic where this is constantly happening, right? You brake in this area. We're gonna talk a lot about this because there's like this hybrid area of aerodynamics, and mechanical grip. And that will be this example when we enter the puhan. Over here, this transition from braking fully, also a little bit of steering input, and we can get away with this with some wing settings and aerodynamics because we have the aerodynamics helping us out in this instance, so we can actually get away with this, right? Then if we go a bit further, I'm completely releasing the brakes, not because I want to steer more, but I actually received, like I'm in this area 153 that I want to stay. I want to keep this speed going through this puhan corner, right? When we brake into the puhan, we are in this area, but what happens is this box, the aero box, shifts forward. And what this now does is that we create an aerodynamic force more in the front of the car, so it's giving us more grip on the front, and we also have load transfer that goes forward, right? So what then happens is this grip circle gets bigger and the rear one gets smaller. But when we have aerodynamics, we still have the rear wing helping us out with stability on the back, right? So we're not pushing out this one. I highly recommend when you're on the puhan, you should always feel a tiny bit of understeer, because that way you never die on the puhan, right? I see people die in the puhan because they're running very aggressive setups. Kudos, if that gets you the fastest lap time, one spin and it doesn't matter anymore. So what to take from this then is that you need to understand that you shift aero forward as you enter puhan. You're in this hybrid area where you need to understand that you're using mechanical and aerodynamic grip. And you need to understand that when you start to steer the car and braking, you are pushing your front wheels into this limit, helping aerodynamics. And you have the danger of pushing this one out of the limit. If you have, let's say, a very aggressive brake bias, you might push the rearwards out of the grip circle and you spin. And if it's too much front, then you might get a situation where you just understeer and lock up. The difference between cars, when people say, is this an easy car to drive, a hard car to drive? If it's an easy car, like in this example, the BMW, this becomes more forgiving. And if you have an aggressive or a strange car, or a car that is typically hard to drive, it's very easy to push the grip circle in the red zone, in the point where you lose the car easily, right? And that is a layer of how the aerodynamics are treated in the game and the tire model combined. It's really complicated, but think about these three states your car can be in. Now this state, it's kind of hard to lock up the car, and when you have this speed, it's also kind of hard to spin the rear tires. So you can be quite aggressive on how much you push the throttle down, how much you push the brake down. But as soon as you start going slowly, you need to be more gentle with the throttle and the braking, and you can actually use a lot of steer lock. That first puhan is done, and we start increasing the speed over here, and now we can just be full throttle exiting that corner. Why? Because when you're in a mechanical grip area or you're driving a bit slowly, you need to be more careful on the throttle. But when you go faster and faster, your acceleration is not going to push the tires out of the grip circle anymore. So in the second puhan, where we are full on the throttle, because this grip circle represents on how fast we accelerate the car, but we're not accelerating that fast anymore because of all this wind resistance, rolling resistance, and the power of the engine is just not enough anymore to push the tires out of the grip circle. So we can corner the car. But because we're going faster, we have all these four tires are getting increased aerodynamics, and we can actually steer the car, and the car is just like, you can move it again. Same as in Eau Rouge and Radion, same as the puhan 2, the car is in the same state again, and we can really hit the throttle and change direction safely. Now you can see here this box, it's completely filled up. There's a little bit of a gap between here and here. Think about, as we are on throttle, it's kind of moving backwards on the high speed, so we have a little bit more load transfer to the rears compared to the fronts, but we can still corner a lot on high speed on the fronts. Now we're back here, and you can see we need to trail brake and we need to be careful with the throttle. I'm kind of playing a lot, my inputs are a little bit off here, but that also shows that this BMW is a pretty safe car. Like some cars you cannot really do this, right? Now again here, this is a great example, this corner in particular, because the faster you enter this corner, the more you can get away with full throttle exit. If you kind of approach this corner too slow, then you cannot utilize your aerodynamics, and you like in this sense, we're driving 192 here on this part of the track right now. But if we were 20 kilometers slower between like the previous corner, so let's go back a little bit. Over here, what if we went a bit slower and we still need to accelerate like crazy? And that means that when we didn't drive fast enough, we have this aerodynamic shifting backwards, and we have load transfer on the rear, and we might have more aerodynamic force on the rear. But now when I try to corner the car, it might just understeer, right? And we're pushing this front tire out of the grip circle. And this is just such a important corner, and this is also where you see fast and normal drivers see a lot of difference here, because these effects really start to compound. Again, if we were going a little bit faster, then this aero box might be bigger, and therefore the front tires start to bite a bit more under throttle, and then we could actually make it, right? Also, setup is really important here. If you have a very aggressive setup, then the car will corner there, but you need to be careful with your steer lock and the throttle application. If you're not careful enough, you might spin it anyways, and then if you spin, it doesn't really matter how good your setup is, because if you spin, then you don't have a lap time, you have a car that is broken because you spun it. But we have a good setup, so we don't spin, okay? So let's go up to this next straight, and here I'm gonna explain how to think about your ride heights and how that's gonna change the balance here. Now here we have just a high speed, we have massive aerodynamics, and we can, if we time it properly, we can take Bellissimo full throttle. Now Bellissimo is a corner that you need to do full throttle. In pretty much every simulation, it is possible to do, except for one car, the Chevrolet on LMU. Please, LMU, fix that car. The aerodynamics are completely broken in that car, if you ask me. So what if you could not corner the car on Bellissimo and you have the understeer, right? You have an aerodynamic problem. The problem is you got aerodynamics helping you out, but you got aerodynamics two positions too far backwards. So you're on the throttle, there's a little bit of that load transfer to the rear because your rear tires are speeding up the car, so the nose will lift a little bit, but with enough aerodynamics, the front will also come down. But when you cannot corner the car, you got the understeer, right? I pretty much prefer this to some extent, because if I'm gonna be changing direction because I need to like avoid or dodge a situation, I like to have a safety net in my car, right? So, but then again, I don't want to lift on the Bellissimo. So imagine we have 10 millimeters of rake in this instance. So very simply, from ride height perspective, front 50 millimeters, rear 60 millimeters, and we have this balance, we have the understeer. When you then shift ride height up, the rear one, the rear ride height you shift up, you create a new balance where this box is more positioned forward. So you're increasing the aerodynamics on the front grip circle, right? As you corner the car. And this might create a balance where the car will turn on the Bellissimo or on the Bellissimo corner, right? So we're robbing a bit from the back and we're pushing it a little bit to the front. This sounds really complicated, but it actually is not. It is really simple. And aerodynamics in real life are super complicated. I know. I trying to study it as I'm going. But in a simulation, it's just working like this because they cannot introduce every aerodynamic factor that's gonna be on the car physics. So in a simulation we can change it pretty easily with ride heights. Now, in the link below, I'll put a free BMW setup from this one, and you tune that rear ride height, just the rear ride height, to get a little bit of a different change in the mechanical, hybrid, aero area and under the high speed. You can feel those changes, and also feel that these low speed changes are pretty insignificant because there's no aero, and you're changing ride heights for the aero. Now, this wouldn't be a track guide if we don't at least finish the lap. So high speed still, again, full on the brakes, releasing it, corner the car here, be gentle. Also here with the throttle, be gentle, keep that grip on the rear. And here I'm finishing like almost a 219. I just got really close. So this lap was a 5.2 mid downforce setup. And what that basically means is that level where I created it on will give a nuance to these different grip circles, how they push in and out of it. So easy setups will have a lot of security here, and high level setups that I created are really, when you abuse throttle or steering input, you very quickly push them outside of the window, but there's more performance in it. It's always a trade-off. So same with the ride height change you're going to make. If you make ride height changes on the back, you most definitely will create a more front dominant end, but it will also create a more aggressive car when you're braking, let's say on the puhan corner. So think about this as an exercise you can use, like, oh man, now I'm on the limit of this ride height, because I can drive it on Blasimo and Eau Rouge maybe, but on puhan it's really aggressive. Now, I've created a full 7-step system in how to build these up for yourself. And when you run through this exercise, all of it starts to make sense. All of anti-roll bar, springs, brake bias, differential, all that stuff starts to make a lot of sense with this aero box model. So that is in the Art of Car Setups in the link down below. And check out the description if you're into VR, or you want to support me or whatever. Thanks for watching.